such as knives and chains, were recovered from them. Now, the police said that the suspects, aged between 14 and 17, had circulated a threat voice note boasting of plans to stage a war, burn down the school, and harm students and staff. Yamu said 8 of the suspects have been remanded to the correctional center and 13 released to their parents and guardians. So, my question is this: why do some areas experience high teen violent behavior? Because you see, once again, why do some areas experience high teen violent behavior? Because see this particular story, it hits home. One of the very few times in my stay in secondary school, I was a boarder. One of the few times, I think in the entire 6 years I was in school, I got out of school when I wasn't meant to get out of school. No more than, if my memory serves me correctly, no more than 4 times. And 3 of those times were on official duty. As a prefect, we were charged with some responsibility for one thing or the other. So whenever that responsibility would come, whether you were, in my case, my first position in school back then, my first really, intense position was in the choir. I was one of the few people who, young as we were given the responsibility to make sure that our instruments were always cleaned, well maintained, or you play them. We would organize the songs to be sung during mass and things like that. So that was our responsibility. Now, one year, we had a principal, a much elderly gentleman. I think his name was Mr. Imobio. He's late now, right? He sent myself and 2 other students to Benin. So we were leaving school to go into Benin City, main town. We wanted to fix our electric organ, electric keyboard back then, so that we can have better performances during mass. And so we got to Benin, right? We got to the park, right? We were giving money. I can't forget, we were giving about 300 naira, right? We got to the park. The man really trusted us. Now I think back, why did he trust us so much? Anyway, we got to the park, and then my other prefect who knew Lagos very well. Those of you who know Benin, there was this place, I don't know if it's still famous now, was called Uyi Electrical, right, or Uyi Technical. Anyway, so we're going there to go and fix the keyboard or make plans to buy a new one. Now, as we're approaching, we saw a huge number of people running towards us. And then somebody shouted, "Not them, not them, not them." And they were pointing at us. 3 of us. We were wearing green check shirt and green shorts. Now, it didn't occur to me back then that there were several schools who used the same color and check scheme as their uniform. We were caught between the crossfire. Ladies and gentlemen, me, after watching all the plenty Rambo and Commando movies, I remember the safest place to be was inside a gutter or under a car. So first things first was under the vehicle. Next thing, I rolled inside the gutter. I will never forget this day. I was wearing shorts that day. And so the people came, they were pulling away, where they bad my children. See, then they fight, they form cults. Back in school. So this hits home. Now, when I was speaking to my friend yesterday, and he said, look, let's be honest. Many of those things that we did back then wasn't because, people were in rival gangs. No, it was just the hormones of boys who were raging. Egos were being frayed. People wanted to feel that they were more superior to you. So the boys in secondary school A would be, having a quarrel, maybe playing football. Next thing, there was a rivalry. There's a rivalry. And almost every secondary school I remember in our time, I don't know about this time, we had this, in some cases, healthy competition. For us, it was, we wanted to beat Igbonejo Educational Center when it comes to, academics and whatever, and all the type of things. It's for us and another school was when we beat them in football. We felt we were the better footballers. So there was rivalry amongst the schools. If only our government knew what it was doing, it would have channeled these energies to proper sporting events and proper debate centers. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. However, ladies and gentlemen, people fought. And I kid you not, people fought dirty when we were in secondary school. Now, reading this story, I have heard that in modern day Nigeria, primary and secondary school students are now being, as it were, lured into gangs, call them cults. But in the same Benin, there were certain places where we didn't used to have these fights. And there were schools all over the place. They didn't used to fight. In some other places, the fighting would be, in fact, it was a yearly thing. By May, June, the teachers in both secondary schools are already warning parents to tell their children disease from this. They even make plans to get the police to be patrolling the roads where these two schools would regularly meet. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, if you were in Port Harcourt in the late 90s, early 2000s, you would have heard back in those days near town that Port Harcourt Primary, which was not too far from where Brereton was, which was also not too far from where Stella Maris was a very interesting, road. The Isaac Borough Park Road behind, right? You see that road? When school was about to end the session, fights regularly occurred. Were they gang related? I don't know. Was it just youthful exuberance? I don't know. I honestly cannot tell you right now. But I can tell you this for a fact. That road, more people will fight on that road than they will fight if they were on Enestikoli Road in OGRA. And there were schools there as well. So what exactly makes teenagers violent? What exactly is the problem?
The views and opinions shared on this program do not represent the position of Nigeria Info FM. Nigeria Info, let's talk.
Hello, with Jude on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
017-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003. At Nigeria Info PH, at Nigeria Info PH is where you find us on Facebook and X at Nigeria Info PH. The WhatsApp number is 0809 030 6416, 0809 030 6416. Once again, what exactly makes teen violence occur in one region and not the other? That's the question this morning. When we were in Benin, we used to hear back in those days, boys model, and was it not Edo College? Almost every year, there must be a fight somewhere between boys model. Once again, look, if you grew up in Benin, I'll let you know of the primary school here in Port Harcourt. I don't know if Port Harcourt, the secondary schools had the same issues when I left, went back to Benin, right? I don't know. But I can tell you that back in those days in Benin, when you hear Edo College boys, we all used to run. Boys, model boys often use exam. We all used to run. Why? Why exactly? And these were teenagers. Really? They were teenagers. All right. Franklin here says, Jude, good morning. It's a normal thing these days. We need the government and indeed the parents to pay very close attention to their children. Yes, some of these gang members, I'm not going to use the word that other people like to use, but some of these gang members usually look for young people to start to use them to sell drugs. Franklin, with that comment. Zion is on the line from Port Harcourt. Zion, good morning to you.
He just got back some nostalgia.
Interesting.
With the Port Harcourt. It was normal. Then it wasn't a gang.
Okay.
It was like the school versus the school. Both schools trying to dominate, conquer, and control. The Antonia want to make sure their voices are heard. Including the girls' school too. The Arbor Road and the Arbor Road girls and this other one at back. Now forget this. What's this girls' school at back?
I talk about where Isabel Park is.
Yes.
Holy
They don't
Rosary.
get school. Holy Rosary, yes. There is this kind of, we want to dominate. We want to be heard. In some of those cases, it might even be 2 girlfriends or 2 boyfriends. The thing was, we can't really put our hands. Why are these students fighting each other? And definitely they will fight. But it wasn't like what you just heard of recent. We are going to burn down the school.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even trace it to gangs or cultism. No. It was just like, they don't fight our school. But we should go fight to defend our school. It was this crowdy and rowdy thing then. Most times after exams, or it's just spontaneous. But I think if we should look at it carefully, youthful exuberance should not be left out of it.
Okay. So youthful exuberance in our time now, in this 21st century, is what's making children to threaten that they're going to burn down schools and they're going to assault staff members.
This present thing is peculiar because of the environment we found ourselves. By then, there was no harm like this. It was like bone for bones. No weapons were carried. Well, I stand to be corrected. I wasn't that wild growing up. No. But today, you can feel a trace of cultism in it. Not gang. If you say gang, it's a different thing, because these guys have been sponsored, monitored, and taken care of from that cradle. They are already gangsters, not gangsters, cult members. They are already informants at home while they are going to school already as a student. They are informants to the top-notch point 1, 2, whatever. My brother, it's a shame we need to not just like discuss here, but monitor our children. Before I leave, sir, why being these schools where they reach people, children, and why don't they fight?
Good question. Like I said, back then, when we used to work at Isaac Park, well, as we get to the bridge, sometimes fight don't bust. But you never heard that anywhere else. Hello, Potaka returns.
Info on
92.3
Headline News.
To you. My name is Jude Omamegbe, and when I was a teenager, I got into a crosshair of police and the traders at the New Benin market because I and my fellow prefects were wearing the same type of uniforms that the students who were having a serious clash had on. And so Jude had to duck under a trailer, can't forget it, and eventually had to roll into the gutter so that nobody would recognize me or nobody would pick me up and say, "Oh, you're one of those bad students causing problems." They sent us message. That's all our crime. Our only crime that day was that we came from a school of meager means. Let me say it that way. A school of meager means. Our school didn't have a very big school bus, that had air conditioning. Our school couldn't afford to have, given us a driver to go in. But our school was adamant that we learned how to take responsibility for whatever was happening in school. So if something was to go bad, the prefects were held liable and responsible, and so we had to have our exit cards signed. A pass was given, money was given. Go and repair this item that you and your people spoiled. Yes, sir. They trusted us, and we went to fix it. Fortunately for us that day, we were able to fix that keyboard and return back to school safely. Very fortunately. However, that experience left a very bitter taste in my mouth because every time I would take a bus and I would go down to Rama Park back then in Benin, I would be afraid because my first thought is, if I leave this park and I head to New Benin or Ring Road, what if this same thing happened again? Anyway, but that was when we were much younger. And to hear now that it's happening again, once again, in the city I grew up, in the state I grew up in, is worrisome. But it wasn't an isolated occurrence because in Port Harcourt, when I came to Port Harcourt, I also experienced it. There were schools that similarly were at loggerheads. But why exactly do we have the violence, right, with some teenagers in one school and not in another? Is it that the teachers or the principal back then had a better understanding and better way of handling things? or the school where you had a lot of violence, where those schools are maybe the quote unquote the students were not exactly teenagers. Because I will never forget, please, if you graduated from boys model in Benin or Edo College, please, I'm not looking for trouble. I'm only telling you what we used to hear those days. That those days, the boys who were in SS1, SS2, some of them were old enough to have children. So maybe that's why they used to fight. I don't know. But whatever it is, let's have a conversation about it.
The views and opinions shared on this program do not represent the position of Nigeria Info FM. Nigeria Info, let's talk.
With Jude on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
017-923-0002, 0817923-0003, 0817923-0002, 0817923-0003. At Nigeria Info PH, at Nigeria Info PH is where you find us on Facebook and on X at Nigeria Info PH, at Nigeria Info PH. Then please do send us a message on WhatsApp 080306416. That's where you find us on that particular platform. Use that number. Would love to read your comments. The fact that you don't have a WhatsApp enabled device doesn't mean you are cut off or you are eliminated from our conversations. No, please. I must apologize for that impression over the years or months, but please do send us a message and we'll get to read them on the program. All right, so let's start with the messages. All right, this one here says the issue about Valentines for me is centered on on environmental factors. If kids grow up in a place where might is seen as the highest currency, then everyone will tussle to show might. If the school is located in a calm environment where brains are the leading currency, everyone will tussle to be Albert Einstein. It is easy. As much as parents think they want to raise their wards, the environment you raised your kids in matters a lot. Hayes will with that comment. Okay. That's not a far-fetched, assertion now, isn't it? It's the environment. So if your school, for example, is a school where, would be, the order of the day, the children are most likely to become children. As opposed to when your school, is in a place where, people are encouraged to be academically inclined or maybe sports inclined. If they have good sporting facilities, for example, it's all about competition. Let's see who runs better. Let's see who plays better basketball. That would be it, I would think.